Okay, so this is just a quick edit. It's not high end, it's not your Photoshop high frequency separation, but I've started off here with an old scan, and it's a really poor scan from an old 35mm black and white photo. It's not particularly sharp, it's only 3 megapixel. I've opened the scan up in Apple Photos and I'm just now playing around with editing it. So I tend to do an auto enhance first of all to get it somewhere there, and then just mess around with the highlights, the shadows. I like quite a lot of contrast, and I tend to use the black point just to deepen the blacks a little bit, which is better than just going in for the contrast. But you're going to have to play around with yourself and you'll get it to what you want. Not everybody wants the same sort of thing. But when you're done, all you need to do, just click save, send it back to your photos. Now, Remini is the app that I use to sharpen the pictures. As I said, these are really poor quality scans. I tried a couple of other things, they're quite expensive. Remini's about 79p a week. So you can use it until you've had enough of it and then stop it. But as you can see, if you just enhance it, just go straight into the facial bit, you can see the difference it makes. But make sure you go back to the full size when you actually save it, otherwise you will just save a face picture. Okay, again, we're back into Apple Photos. Now, I tend to have a little look at it just to see what it's like, and you can see if you come into it, there's quite a lot of mottling on the skin. Remini really works best for the face. So I then put it into Procreate, and using the smudge tool, fairly low opacity, fairly low size. I tend to use airbrushes because they're a little bit softer. Now, you're not going to see a great deal of difference as this goes on, but if you're doing it yourself, you can just see you're just smoothing the skin out and just smudging some of the pixels across, so it's getting rid of some of the noise from the photograph, and it's just smoothing everything out. If you do a mistake, just use the back button, start all over again, or sometimes it's nice to save the photo as a layer. Just turn the eyedropper off it so you can't see it, and if you make a complete mistake, start all over again. But you can see now I'm just messing around with brushes and opacity, probably never more than about 25–30%. Otherwise, you're just smudging the whole picture across everywhere. Now, this is where you're going to see a lot of difference in this arm, where it's really mottled. Remini has sort of sharpened it up, but it's found lots of lines, and they're fairly ugly. But if you just get your brush, you can see you're just smudging those ugly lines out. Be careful where you go. Always move in the line of the colour, because if you go from a black to a white, you're going to pull black into the white. So go along the lines, go along the contours of the body. I mean, I find this works particularly well with boudoir shots. It gives a really nice, soft 70s, soft focus sort of look to it. You might want to change when you get to the edges, you might want a harder brush so that you don't pull the other sides in. Just do what is best for you. And as I say, you've always got a back button. But I just find this easier than using Gaussian blur and all the stuff you get on Photoshop. Okay, so really just carrying on a little bit more, going in there all over the body. Great thing about Procreate is that you can pinch and zoom, so you can come right in close to what you want, and you can turn it round. You don't have to keep turning the iPad, you can turn the picture round on the desktop to what you actually want. You can see here it's just getting there now. We're beginning to find what we want. When you're doing larger areas, use a larger brush because it's a bit softer. It's only when you go in the face when you're going to want a really small brush to get into the gaps and the edges. Here we go, right down to this arm. That's really quite bad down here. So just a little bit. We're smudging it along, and you're just smoothing it all out, but make sure you keep some of the tones and the shadows, or it's just going to look a flat mess of nothingness. There we go. So, like I say, you can move it around, you can zoom in. It's great. I love Procreate for this. And the smudge tool is good. You can use the paintbrush tool if you want to add things in there. But I'm just going over the sides there now. You'll see you won't see a great deal of difference until you come from the beginning to the end. But there we go, smoothing away at the body. I find this a lot quicker than Photoshop. Photoshop is really dead on. I admit that, it's fantastic. But if you're just smoothing a little bit of skin, particularly in black and white, it's ever so easy with a brush, just to brush it on. But act like an artist, like I say, always keep with the contours of the body. Don't go across the arm, go down the arm. When you're doing busts, always go round the boobs, and the legs, go down the legs. And just keep the tones together, but just smudge the tones there. And it's a lot better than noise reduction. You'll get a nice smooth finish to it. Then we're going to zoom in a little bit on her leg now. Now this is quite an ugly sort of bit here. It's just the way it is from an old scan. But you can see just brushing over it. It's just bringing it out nice and gentle. Yeah, I'll just let you watch this while it's doing. There's very little to say really. Yeah, we're getting there. It's looking more respectable. I tend to work quite close up at first, but once you've done the close up, zoom everything out and have another look at it, because things do look different when they're full size. So that's quite smooth now. That's quite respectable. And you're still retaining some of the shape of it. Don't try and smooth things dead. You know, people have bumps, there are shadows, and you want to keep that to keep it real. I've seen a lot of Photoshop where some of these people just look like a plastic model because it's so smoothed out. Okay, now going to the backgrounds. I always start with the face, work to the body, and then do the background. If you're not happy with the face, there's no point doing the rest of it if it's just not working out. But even that dark area of the back leg now, you can see that is beginning to smooth out nicely. It's just the shadows in the background that need dealing with. You can see how mottled they are, and they're not too good. So nice big brush, nice wide sweeping movements just to smooth it all over. There we go. That's a lot softer than what it was. And this is great if you've got a lot of old 35mm scans that aren't particularly good. You can do this really quickly. We're talking probably about 10 minutes. If you've got a lot of spots, I've got a few which I'll do a video of, which are massively scratched and lots of spots. Just get Photoshop, use it on the iPad again. Use the spot healing brush, get rid of all the spots first before you do all the sharpening and absolutely everything. Well, no, you can do a sharpen first and then do a spot, but just literally play around with them. It's the sort of thing you can do sitting watching the telly. I tend to. There we go, just finish off. Not a lot in that side there, it's fairly white. Just check all the corners. And then just zoom it out, have a look at the whole picture. See what you think. Perhaps run the brush over a little bit just to soften the shadows. I mean, this was taken in the early 90s. It's a real 70s sort of image, but it is taken in the 90s. Okay, when you're finished, save to JPEG, save image, goes straight into your photo album. Come back out, and there we go. Start, finish. Massive difference. Now I go back into editing again. I know it might sound strange, but just a little quick edit, just to touch up a little bit. There you go, the contrast is changing. Just a final edit, because once you've smoothed the skin and everything, you can do some more sharpening and stuff here. Contrast again, I'm terrible for contrast. If any of you remember the days of dark rooms, I was always the grade 5 paper. Pretty good. 10 minutes. All done, all dusted. Hope you enjoy.